Today we are going to be doing a wrap-up of my January books as well as my February TBR. I don't normally do a wrap-up for my channel. Like sometimes I'll just post like random reviews maybe on Patreon, or I will obviously like my Fable and my Goodreads are like public so you can see whatever I review, but I don't really write a lot on there, so like my reviews kind of remain private, which is really weird considering how much of my book taste is like reflected in my TBR videos. So why wouldn't I just talk to you about the books I've read? So we're just going to combine them into one video though, because I don't think I need to talk that long about everything I read in my wrap up, nor do I really want to spend that much time, at least today, going into what I'm going to read next month, because spoiler, I have already pre-selected what I'm going to read next month, and I'll tell you more about that later. But let's go over the books that I read in January. In January, I read 10 books, possibly 11. Like I'm almost done with one now, and by the time that this is going up, I feel like I will have finished it. So I'm going to give a review of that, even though I'm not done yet. The first book I read this month was Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig. I gave this book 4 stars. So this is the second book in like the Shepherd King duology by Rachel Gillig. This was also like her debut duology. I was obsessed with the first book. I don't remember what I rated it, but I really liked it. Loved the second book. The second book had multiple POVs, but it gave me a POV of like one of my favorite characters. So I ate it up and left no crumbs. I wish I hadn't waited so long between reading the 2 books. Everyone told me to hurry up and just read it already, and I wasn't listening, but fell in love with it. Absolutely enjoyed it. The next book was The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. I gave this book 4 stars. I had never read a book by Meg Schaefer. This book was in a lot of the top lists of 2024, so I wanted to give it a shot really going into this year. A lot of my friends read it. I absolutely loved it. So the concept of this book is that there's this famous author that wrote like children's mystery-esque novels about like a magical island. So at some point though, he is now going into retirement, and before he publishes the last book, he invites a handful of his past readers to come and solve puzzles on the island in order to win rights to this book. Kind of really fun. And so we follow one of our characters who goes to go compete for the rights to one of these books, and our main character is also trying to adopt a sweet little boy and is like really connected to him, but just doesn't have the means to adopt him. So it's kind of fun following this journey and like how much the books mean to both her and the little boy. Very wholesome, very sweet. I really enjoyed it. Next, I read Skyshade by Alex Asher. I gave this book 3 stars. So this whole series, the Light Lark, Nightshade, Skyshade, like getting into this book series, I was really optimistic, and each one's really just fell around the 3-star range for me. So I'm not loving it. The love triangle is getting old, and I can tell that I'm on the wrong side of the love triangle, and that's all I'll say about it. I'm on the wrong side. I've picked the wrong person, and that rarely happens to me, so I'm just kind of trucking through it, and I kind of want it to be over, but now I'm so invested that I think I'm going to keep reading it, which is not normally how I feel, but in the case of this series, I think I will continue it, even though they're really batting in the mid-range for me. Next, I decided to read some more Ali Hazelwood. Last year I read Bride, but I DNF'd it. I really did not enjoy it, but a lot of people were telling me that that was like a blip on the radar and I should give her another try. So I decided to start at the beginning of like what I wanted to read from her. So I read Love Hypothesis. I gave this 3 stars. I kind of enjoyed it, and I thought like it was a good palate cleanser. And I don't always feel that way about romance, but for me, coming off of like last year and like going into this year, like I wasn't in a fantasy mood as much, so I was like, I really want some like lighthearted, quicker books that I can get through. So I read that. I immediately went to Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. Again, another 3-star for me. I will say I don't love how all of her men just have to be giants. Like, I don't know if you've noticed this, but every single book of the man is like, he's just so brooding, he's just so tall, he just has such big muscles, he's just such a large guy. Like every single book, because believe it or not, I read another book by Ali Hazelwood, Below Zero, which was a shorter one, and I gave this one 2.75 stars. Again, I think I could have given this one maybe 3 stars and above, but I felt like, you know what, I think that it was too short for her to really develop the characters or the romance happening, so the love just like wasn't there for me. Like still to this point, like I don't really understand why they were in love. I don't understand why him meeting her once and having this like romantic connection made it so that he was obsessed with her forever. I'm sorry, what? To me, that's like a red flag, but maybe that's a green flag. I don't know. I just thought it was a little too, I thought he was a little intense with his love. So those were the 3 Ali Hazelwood books I read. I do really like how she writes about STEM. I found that really interesting and really fun. And obviously she's like a woman in STEM herself. That unique perspective that came across really well in her books. So next I read our book club book, There Are Rivers in the Sky by Elif Shafik. I gave this one 3.5 stars, which is a good rating. I want to preface this because I do have more like 4-star feelings now that I've sat on it about the book. But what I didn't love is that because they were just like separate POVs happening and then all of their stories kind of interconnect, and the whole point is that water just has like a continuous life cycle, and so a drop of water that falls like in ancient times is what led to a series of events, and then it experiences something with this woman and experiences something with this man, and like it's the same drop of water that connects all their stories. And whilst I do think that that's like really, really beautiful and lovely as a concept, what carried out in here just for me personally is that you got nothing tied up at all. And that happens with a lot of like literary fiction. You don't always have like ends tied up because life isn't like that. You don't just always tie up ends. But for some reason when I was reading this book, I wanted just like a little bit more because I really wanted to know about like the two females, particularly towards the end of the story. I kind of wanted to know how their stories wrapped up. I was really intrigued by that. But a beautiful read. I can see why this was a top book for so many people in 2024. I really am glad we read it in book club, and it's really beautiful and I highly recommend. And I think I will share this with a lot of my family members. I think we'll really enjoy reading this. So 3.5, really liked it. Next, I read Anatomy by Dana Schwartz. So this was a YA gothic fantasy romance kind of set in Regency era times. So there's some courting. Basically, we follow our main character who aspires to be a surgeon, but in the time that she lives, she is of the upper class. And so it's her job just basically to get married. And she kind of always knew she would marry her cousin. So she thinks that maybe he'll support her in her dreams of being a surgeon. But she also finds out that this very famous medical person, Nell, is giving courses, and she wants to take his courses, so she impersonates being a boy to go learn about being a surgeon. But back in this time as well, the only cadavers you have access to are the ones who commit crimes. So grave snatching is a big thing in this book. So what happens when an aspiring female surgeon who doesn't have access to cadavers needs to get a body to study on? She enlists the help of a grave robber. I read this so fast, 3.75 stars. But then of course I couldn't stop there. Turns out I already owned the second book, so it's a duology. And so I immediately picked up Immortality. And again, where we kind of, I don't want to give you any spoilers if you haven't read the first one, obviously. Where we leave off isn't really a cliffhanger. No, it is. Where we leave off is a cliffhanger, and it just made me, I had to know how this happens in this book. And so in this book, we are still following our lovely female main character, same girl, and she gets kind of intertwined into the royal family's business. And things happen after that. That's all I'm going to tell you about this book, because obviously you want to read the first book before you head into these. But I loved these two books, and I gave the second book in the series 4 stars. I liked it even more than the first. I super enjoyed these. Next, I finished most recently The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. Read this in 2 days. I loved this book, and it's crazy because I don't really like thrillers, or I had always said that, but I think I'm entering my thriller mystery era because I don't really read in that genre very much. I'm not as well educated on the right terminology for it, but I think that I do like a mystery with a little bit of thriller aspects to it. Like, this is classified as a thriller, so I'm gonna say this is what I like. I ate up this book. It reminded me so much of when I read Gone Girl for the first time. So I'm kind of dipping my toes back into the water of the mystery thriller genre. I liked this a lot. 4 stars. Last book that I'm going to tell you about is Flatshare by Beth O'Leary. That is the book that I'm currently reading and that I'm going to finish up. I'm going to predict that this is a 3-star or 3.5 star for me. I really am enjoying her writing so far, and I really like the concept. 2 people who don't know each other but work opposite work hours go to share a flat, because essentially it's like, this will be your bed during the 9 to 5 hours, and then this will be my bed for the weekend and the night shift kind of hours, like whatever. So they just never cross paths, but they develop like a friendship through sticky notes. How fun is that? So I'm really enjoying that story so far, and I kind of see where it's heading, and I'm gonna give it 3.5 stars, I believe. Don't hold me to it. Go check out my Goodreads. Okay, this brings me into the next part of the video, which is, sorry, I'm sitting by the window and my neighbor's dog is just being so cute. She's so sweet. Hi, I think her name's Nora. A dog named Nora? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Okay, let's talk about February's TBR. Now, I decided that because it is the month of love and romance, I want to read books with stories of love in them that I want. But I also want to read books by my loved ones. Now, those are two very different concepts. So first, let's talk about the books that I was inspired to read because of their story of love. Beach Read by Emily Henry. She is a romance author, very well known, very beloved. I've only ever read Happy Place by her. A crime, I know. And so one of my goals is just to read a few more of her books this year. And Beach Read, this one is two authors who kind of write very, very different novels, but are both in like a reading rut. So they end up in neighboring vacation homes and they challenge each other to write a different style and like basically like swap their, no, don't bark. Don't bark, Simon. Basically, they challenge each other to write in each other's style, and they kind of go on adventures throughout the summer to kind of inspire each other. This, I don't think is very many people's favorite, but I like that it's two authors, so I think I'm really gonna enjoy it. And I know it's a romance. The next book, also chosen by me for the love, is Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna, a new to me author last year who I absolutely fell in love with. Shout out to all my friends who told me I should read her, and I finally listened. But this one, it follows two girls and their friendship as teens all the way through adulthood. And I think it goes back and forth between the timelines to kind of piece together the story of their friendship, where it is now, how it's grown, their impact on each other's lives. And I love female friendship, and I especially love how Kristen Hanna writes stories between like mothers and daughters and friends and just really powerful women. I think it's like accurate in how she paints them as really strong, but also as very vulnerable and tender-hearted. Next, I decided that I would pick our book club book, so I chose The Lost Story by Meg Schaefer. So maybe you remember from like 2 minutes ago in this video, I read The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer last month. I really, really liked it, and this book is kind of a Narnia-inspired story. So two boys go missing in like a magical woods of sorts and live to tell the tale. So now, fast forward to the future, this woman's best friend or sister, I can't remember, gets lost in the same wood. And so one of the boys that made it out the first time goes back into the woods with our female protagonist to find her friend. I'm really intrigued, and as a Narnia girl, you better believe I'm gonna jump on this book. So that's our book club book. If you want to join us, head on over to Patreon, link as always down below. So then I decided my other three books, what do I want to do for this? Do I want to do the jar? I don't know. Since I had already picked out half of my TBR, I kind of like didn't know where to go from there. So I enlisted the help of my loved ones to pick a book. First off, I asked my beloved mother to pick a book, and I was not surprised, but she picked The Woman in the White Kimono. Now, this was on my TBR a couple times at the beginning of last year as well, because this is a book given to me by my mother. It is very well loved. Her and my uncle read it. It has a story of a woman who discovers like an era of Japan, which is based off a true story because this era did exist, where a lot of females fell in love with soldiers who were stationed there during war times. What happens when they accidentally get pregnant? What do they do with those babies? A lot of them were even married to some of those soldiers, and then they died not unexpectedly, but they died in battle. And so they have to give up these babies. And so we're following the story of a girl who was adopted from one of those places and her journey back to Japan to kind of look at that story. Yeah, I really want to read this. Okay, next I asked my bestie Carrie to pick a book for me off of like my TBR book list, and she picked The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I know nothing of this. I know nothing of the story. I just know that this is a very beloved fantasy series for a lot of people. So I obviously want to jump on board and get to reading this. And the last person is I asked my partner to pick a book. Now, he and I work opposite hours, so he is still asleep. However, I have a gut instinct based on my TBR shelf downstairs, because I had a feeling he was going to like pick from what he's seen before. I have a gut feeling, and if I'm wrong, I'm so sorry, that he's going to pick Onyx Storm. Also, the way the light, whoa, that looks so cool. And then the light hits it and you see all the Onyx Storm. Now, Fourth Wing, really good. Iron Flame, abysmally let me down. Onyx Storm, I have higher hopes for you. I have heard from so many people that this is a lot better. I can't really tell you a lot about this other than that it's part of the Empyrean series. There's supposed to be 5 books. This is book 3. Dragon College, battles, government fights, push and pull love story, enemies to lovers. That's really all I can tell you if you haven't read the other books. But if you are along for the ride, Iron Flame left us off on a big cliffhanger, and I fought through like several hundred pages to get to that last chapter, which gave me information that I need. So I'm very excited about this book right here. For a recap, we will be reading The Lost Story by Meg Schaefer, our book club choice, Prince by Holly Black, Bestie Carrie's choice. Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros, partner's choice. The Woman in the White Kimono, mother's choice. They Call Me Mother. Firefly Lane, my own personal choice by Kristen Hanna. And Beach Read by Emily Henry, again, my own personal choice. It's time. Thank you for watching. I'm so excited. I love you a lot, and hopefully I see you over in book club.